The
You think that
cigarette
bullet
never
scares me?
trembled.
It
Dean
should! It's
Martin,
aimed
at
right at you!
45
Then
years
draw!
old,
Not until you holster
stood with
yours!
his characteristic slouch on the dusty set of Sergeant's 3, a half-finished drink in his left hand and a Marlboro dangling from his lips, watching Sammy Davis Jr. demonstrate quick draw techniques that had left cast and crew members speechless. But what happened in the next 0.20 seconds would teach everyone present something profound about the difference between speed and danger, between technical mastery and authentic intimidation. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why Hollywood never looked at Dean Martin the same way again. Sammy had just completed his 5th consecutive sub, 0.19-second draw. Each one a mechanical marvel of precision and velocity that defied human limitations. The gathered crowd was appropriately amazed, applauding the kind of superhuman performance that belonged in circus acts rather than movie sets. But Dean Martin, watching from the shadows with the patient amusement of someone who understood something that everyone else was missing, was about to demonstrate why true menace had nothing to do with stopwatches and everything to do with the kind of presence that made people instinctively step backward, even when you were holding a cocktail. This is the untold story of the day when Hollywood learned that speed impresses people, but danger owns them. June 1962 was peak Rat Pack season. Frank Sinatra had assembled his closest friends for Sergeant's 3, a western that was serving more as an excuse for the group to spend time together than as a serious filmmaking endeavor. The cast included Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop, the 5 men who had redefined what it meant to be cool in American entertainment. But even within this group of supremely confident performers, hierarchies existed. And on this particular afternoon during a break in filming, those hierarchies were being inadvertently revealed through an impromptu demonstration of quick draw skills that had attracted the attention of the entire production. Sammy Davis Jr., at 37 years old, was at the absolute peak of his physical and artistic powers. He had spent the previous decade perfecting not just his entertainment skills but his marksmanship abilities, developing the kind of quick draw speed that belonged in the record books rather than on movie sets. For the past 20 minutes, he had been entertaining cast and crew with demonstrations that repeatedly shattered 0.20 seconds, times that professional gunfighters struggled to achieve under optimal conditions. Each draw was executed with mathematical precision, mechanical consistency, and a level of control that suggested capabilities far beyond anything required for entertainment purposes. The assembled audience was appropriately amazed. Crew members who had worked on dozens of westerns declared that they had never seen anything comparable. Fellow actors acknowledged that Sammy's abilities transcended the theatrical and entered the realm of genuine expertise. "That's inhuman," Peter Lawford had commented after watching Sammy's 4th consecutive sub, 0.19-second draw. "Nobody should be able to move that fast. It's like watching a machine," Joey Bishop agreed. "Precision, speed, consistency, everything you'd want from a professional gunfighter." The praise was genuine and well-deserved, but it was also revealing something about how the assembled group understood the relationship between speed and authentic danger. Dean Martin had been watching the demonstrations from a comfortable distance, leaning against a fake saloon wall with his eternal drink and cigarette, observing the crowd's reaction as much as Sammy's performance. To those who knew Dean well, his expression suggested the kind of patient amusement that preceded either a joke or a lesson, and sometimes both. Finally, as the applause died down from Sammy's latest demonstration, Dean pushed himself away from the wall and walked toward the shooting area with the unhurried confidence that characterized all his movements. "Nice work, Smokey," Dean said, using his affectionate nickname for Sammy. "Very impressive, very technical." The comment was delivered with Dean's signature laconic style, but those who understood his sense of humor detected something more pointed in the observation. "Thanks, Dean," Sammy replied, still energized from the demonstrations. "Want to give it a try? I could time you." Dean looked at the stopwatch in Sammy's hand, then at the target 20 yards away, then back at Sammy with the kind of amused expression he wore when someone had missed the point of something obvious. "Time me," Dean repeated, taking a slow drag from his cigarette. "Kid, you're thinking about this all wrong." He gestured toward the assembled crew members who were still buzzing with excitement about Sammy's performance. "Look at these people. They're impressed. They're amazed. They're entertained. But are they afraid? The question hung in the air like smoke from Dean's Marlboro. The crew members looked at each other uncertainly, beginning to understand that Dean was making a distinction that they hadn't previously considered. You see, Dean continued, speed is a trick. It's impressive. It's measurable. It gets attention. But dangerous. That's something else entirely. He handed his drink to a nearby script supervisor and casually checked his gun belt, not with Sammy's scientific precision, but with the absent-minded competence of someone who had never given much thought to the mechanics of what he was doing. Dangerous isn't about how fast you are, Dean said, his voice carrying the conversational tone he used for everything from ordering dinner to discussing philosophy. Dangerous is about people believing you'll actually use it. What happened next redefined everyone's understanding of what authentic menace looked like. Dean didn't take a formal shooting stance. He didn't announce his intention. He didn't ask for timing or measurement. He simply stood in his characteristic slouch, cigarette still dangling from his lips, and without any visible preparation or dramatic buildup, his hand moved to his weapon. The draw was devastatingly fast, clocking 0.20 seconds by those who managed to time it. But that wasn't what made it memorable. What made it memorable was the complete absence of effort, the total lack of showmanship, the casual indifference with which Dean had demonstrated capabilities that matched Sammy's superhuman speed while looking like he was reaching for his car keys. But more importantly, the effect on the assembled audience was completely different from their reaction to Sammy's demonstrations. Sammy's speed had impressed them. Dean's speed had unnerved them. The difference was immediately apparent in the body language of everyone present. Where Sammy's demonstrations had inspired appreciation and applause, Dean had created a subtle but unmistakable atmosphere of wariness. People were standing differently, breathing differently, looking at Dean with the kind of careful attention that comes from recognizing genuine unpredictability. "Jesus, Dean," Frank Sinatra said quietly, his voice carrying unusual respect. "Where did that come from?" Dean holstered his weapon with the same casual indifference he had shown while drawing it, retrieved his cigarette from his lips, took a thoughtful drag, and smiled the lazy smile that had made him famous. "Same place it always comes from, Frank. I just don't make a big production out of it." He retrieved his drink from the script supervisor and took a contemplative sip before continuing his explanation. "See, Sammy here has turned quick draw into an art form," Dean said, nodding appreciatively toward his friend. "Technical perfection, measurable results, consistent performance. It's beautiful to watch." Sammy listened with the attention he gave to any master craftsman discussing technique. But he was beginning to understand that Dean was making a point about more than just marksmanship. "But art is for audiences," Dean continued. "And what I just showed you wasn't art. It was a reminder that some people don't need to prove anything to be taken seriously." The distinction was profound and unsettling. Dean was explaining that authentic danger didn't announce itself, didn't seek validation, and didn't require witnesses to be effective. "Speed gets you respect," Dean said, finishing his drink and setting the glass down on a convenient prop table. "But unpredictability gets you space, and in most situations, space is more valuable than respect." He demonstrated his point by walking casually through the assembled crowd. Without any conscious decision, people moved aside to give him room. Not because they were afraid of him personally, but because they had just been reminded that Dean Martin existed in a category that didn't follow the normal rules of social interaction. "You clock me at 0.20 seconds, Dean said to Sammy. "But that's not what these people are going to remember. They're going to remember that I drew faster than they could follow while holding a conversation and smoking a cigarette." The lesson was both technical and philosophical. Dean was teaching not just about gunfighting, but about presence, intimidation, and the psychology of authentic confidence. "Don't get me wrong," Dean added quickly. "What Sammy does is incredible, superhuman. I couldn't consistently hit those times if my life depended on it. But consistency isn't always the point." Sammy was beginning to understand the deeper implications of Dean's demonstration. You're saying that being unpredictably fast is more effective than being measurably fast. I'm saying that people respect technical excellence, but they remember moments when they realize they don't know what someone is capable of, Dean replied. And not knowing is always more intimidating than knowing exactly how fast someone is. The conversation continued for another 15 minutes, with Dean elaborating on the psychology of intimidation and the difference between demonstrable skill and authentic presence. It became clear that his approach to developing dangerous capabilities was fundamentally different from Sammy's scientific methodology. You study marksmanship like a scholar, Dean explained. You've mastered every technical aspect, optimized every variable, eliminated every inefficiency. It's genuine expertise. He lit another cigarette and continued. But I learned gunfighting like a predator. Not to be the best, but to be the most unsettling. Not to impress people, but to make them uncertain about what I might do next. The philosophical difference was striking. Both men had achieved extraordinary capabilities, but they had approached mastery from completely different psychological perspectives. Technical perfection is reassuring, Dean said. People see Sammy draw and they think, that's incredible skill. They see me draw and they think, I wonder what else he's not showing me. Frank Sinatra, who had been listening to this analysis with fascination, finally spoke up. So you're saying that Sammy scares people with what he can do, but you scare people with what you might do? Exactly, Dean replied. And might is always scarier than can. The distinction resonated through the assembled group, who began to understand that they had witnessed not just two different approaches to quick draw, but two different philosophies of power and intimidation. As filming resumed and the afternoon progressed, the impact of Dean's demonstration became increasingly apparent. Crew members who had been comfortable treating Dean with casual familiarity now showed a subtle but unmistakable difference. Not fear exactly, but the kind of respectful caution that comes from realizing you've been underestimating someone. You know what the real difference is? Sammy asked Dean during a quiet moment between scenes. What's that? Your speed was just as impressive as mine, but somehow you made it look effortless, like it was the least impressive thing you could do if you wanted to. Dean smiled the enigmatic smile that had made him a star. That's because it was smoky. That's because it was. The filming of Sergeants 3 concluded without any further demonstrations, but the lesson from that afternoon became part of Rat Pack lore. Cast and crew members who were present that day would tell the story for decades, usually emphasizing not the specific times or technical details, but the unsettling realization that Dean Martin possessed capabilities that he kept carefully hidden beneath layers of casual indifference. Years later, when Sammy was asked about the fastest draw he had ever witnessed, he would always give a surprising answer. Mine was faster, but Dean's was more dangerous, and I learned that day that dangerous beats fast every time. The lesson of that afternoon went beyond marksmanship or entertainment industry competition. It was a reminder that authentic power often concealed itself, that the most intimidating people were those who never felt the need to prove their capabilities, and that true confidence was measured not by what you could demonstrate but by what you chose not to reveal. Dean Martin returned to his characteristic slouch and his eternal drink. But everyone who had witnessed his demonstration carried with them a new understanding of what lay beneath the surface of his casual demeanor. They had learned that the king of cool wasn't just cool. He was potentially lethal, and the combination of those two qualities created something far more unsettling than speed alone could ever achieve. The cigarette had never trembled, the drink had never spilled, and the casual smile had never wavered. But in 0.20 seconds, Dean Martin had taught everyone present that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who looks like they're not paying attention. Speed impresses people, but danger owns them. And on that dusty movie set in 1962, Hollywood learned the difference between the two in a way that none of them would ever forget. Because when someone can outdraw you while holding a conversation and smoking a cigarette, you begin to wonder what else they're capable of. And wondering is always more intimidating than knowing. If you enjoyed this story from StorySphere, make sure to subscribe for more untold tales from Hollywood's golden age. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story, And let us know in the comments what other Hollywood legends you'd like us to explore next. Until next time, this is StorySphere, reminding you that the greatest stories are the ones that reveal what lies beneath the surface.